Hey, Podcast America. Welcome to episode, is this 49 of the Enlightened Neanderthals podcast. And before we get into it, I'm going to talk about my own company, Training Northwest, located here in Washington State. We have the full training calendar up on the website, trainingnorthwestllc.com. And we are a dealer of Vortex Optics. For those of you guys who listen to the show from out of state and can't make it to the range, if you want to support a small company, get on the website, go to the Pro Shop tab, and look at, there's a bunch of Vortex stuff. There's some T-shirts and hats. And I carry everything in the Vortex catalog. So just because you don't see it on the website doesn't mean you can't email me. I'll send you a quote, and I'll get it in the mail right away for you. And for those of you who are local, if you buy your optic from us, I can help you with installation if you need it. And then you get a range session to get out there and zero it. And I always run everybody through a couple drills afterwards anyway, just to get you familiar with your new equipment and make sure that you're not, buying a new optic and setting it on the shelf next to your rifle or pistol because it's not zeroed to it.
You can teach me how to drive that Ferrari? I think so.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Baby. I like that, Mike. All right.
Come out to the crotch of the Cascades.
That's right.
Drive that Ferrari. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, Electric North Jiu-Jitsu universe of podcasts. Michael Kozak, go.
We got White Belt Mafia. We've got Patriotic Islander. We've got Coffee Talk. We've got our Stones and Bones. Who?
Yeah, baby.
Say it.
Compassionate Viking.
Yeah, I need to hear the voice say it. Thank you. And we have our guru and listen to ever,
Greg Anderson.
Am I missing anything?
No, I think you got them all.
Someone has a YouTube channel out there, maybe showing they're doing shrimping drills. Do we need to shout it out?
Who's doing that?
No one.
No one. Okay, is that
someone might? That's me. That's me. Sorry.
Oh my gosh! All right, Mike. This show was your conception. Go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to talk about Cold War that we're currently in and the Cold War of the past. I think I stuck up for communism. Tobin, you said there's a one world government. It's going to kill us all. Jordan still wants to make a homemade knife. I mean, I think this is classic, dude. We each have our own points, and we tried to talk about the Cold War, but
yeah. We got there a little bit.
We got there.
That was a solid, I think. We'll
I
find out.
I didn't mean like the Cold War of the past. I mean, paralleling, if we're in a current weird Cold War, in how the Cold War of the past worked and similarities. And that's my favorite thing, is taking two extreme things and drawing them into one conclusion.
Compare and contrast.
Yeah.
And mental masturbation.
Mental masturbation.
Yeah. All right, you guys, enjoy the show. All right, Mike, this was your idea. And I want to know, are we talking, the idea is Cold War 2.0 versus Cold War 1.0, is that correct?
Yeah, I just wanted to do, I think we are in a new Cold War, a form of a Cold War. The last one was easier to see because it involved nuclear arms and there was more of a race and tensions were higher.
So what I wanted to ask you, what I thought of earlier today is, are you intending this as in the scenario of a U.S. versus Russia Cold War, or do you mean it's a clash of cultures like communism versus capitalism was?
It's kind of both. I mean, I think China might be our silent Russia. I think China's strategic viewpoint throughout history has been China is the best and other people are lucky to do business with China. Like if we trade, we're lucky, you're lucky in being able to have commerce traded with us. And I think because China's been around for a long, long time, it's like you think Europe's old. It's like, dude, go to China. There's been dynasties and emperors, and it's shaped a culture and a civilization. But I think the Art of War is a good read because it shows the mentality of a long game. And I think China kind of has a long game with, I don't know if it's necessarily war per se, but that they want to replace the United States as the number 2 power or the number one power and make us the number two power.
Okay, so the way you see Cold War 2.0 is U.S. versus China.
But China's Russia. But see, this goes back to the Cold War, because as soon as World War II ended, like the U.S., I think, started CIA to move throughout the world to stop different countries, and from them becoming more powerful players, not only in weaponry, but also in politics and alliances.
Well, I think the CIA was initially formed under the idea of doing exactly what you're saying, but with a much more specific focus on containing communism.
Yes.
It didn't take long before it became like
and look at Korea.
The dirty action arm of
Yes.
the government, and then went a little rogue. But initially, it was meant to, you had the two policies coming out of World War II, where the Soviets were wanting to expand communism, and then all the NATO countries had the policy of, what was it, like the Marshall Act or something, where they're going to oppose the spread of communism at all costs.
But then with NATO, it's kind of already shown instantly like who the big players are, in my opinion, because if you're joining these pacts, it's either because of proximity, you're close to these countries where war was involved, or it's you're a power that's involved with these wars maybe thousands of miles away, like the United States. Or
I think the United States started to realize how profitable, because we were the one country that didn't get bombed to shit in that war. Everybody else had their industrial facilities destroyed. So the U.S. had all these years of war running their factories at high RPM.
But wait, what did you say before
hang on,
that?
Hang on. So there was no unemployment in the United States because everybody was at work for the war machine and the factories were cranking. And so then when the war ended, there was nobody to oppose us industrially because everybody's infrastructure had been destroyed except for ours. That's why the United States rose to become the world's premier superpower post-World War II, is we had this huge head start on everybody. Now
we accounted for one of the 35% of all the world's makings, right? Like
during World War II.
No, it was way up there. It was way up there, and we're down to like 16%.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Post World War II.
Yes,
and but that came to be in a competition-less environment because everybody else's shit was just wrecked, and so. Hang on, this is a little bit of a shakeup now, which is, just like we said, the internet is disrupting old power structures. We may be what we are experiencing as, the rise of India, the rise of China, the rise of Brazil, all these other competing economies, the BRICS Pact, may just be that all these other nations have finally caught up to us in terms of what they can do industrially and economically.
Well,
and it took that because it's only been 70 years since the end of World War II, right?
Yeah.
So it takes a long fucking time to rebuild your infrastructure when you've been bombed flat.
Yes.
The culture in the U.S. has changed, though. We went from
and I think that's intentional.
Yes,
I think that's intentional.
100%.
But if China, I'm sorry, keep going.
We went from an industrialized country that was really turning stuff out and accounting for a big portion of the world's industry, and after that, we turned and slowly became that like a country of we had so much
excess.
So
in the early 2000s, we became an economy of excess.
Even before that, but we started everything keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, right? So everybody's buying different things and just so we became consumers.
That's like baby boomer.
Putting
the
output.
50s. Yeah, absolutely, instantly.
So when that started happening, other countries started rising. And we started going, oh, well, if we do it this way.
Yeah, but even the biggest player like China didn't rise until the 70s when they had to open trade. When their policy changed, was it the early 70s or the late 70s? But China was not bombed. I mean, they had their skirmishes.
They weren't wrecked like Europe was.
Yeah,
but
Europe
they also
was
were
decimated.
Very poor.
Exactly.
In the early 1900s. They did not have.
It doesn't matter if you're bombed or you've never even been close to having
you're starting
the technology.
you're
starting
very
from a
low
zero.
Point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're zeroed. So like,
and same with India. India didn't get bombed in World War II. They were just starting from zero.
Yeah. So the manufacturing, like, why to go back, why I think the CIA was created was because, yes, you can bomb the shit out of places, but they will rebuild. Right? If the technology is known and they have the capabilities, it's kind of this new industrial revolution. It's probably a lot easier to start a tank manufacturing plant in the late 1940s than it is in the 1910s, you know, because so much is already known. So it's easy to copy these technologies and make things. You already know how to mine and get ore and do these trades. But to me, what changes it is like, the China that never was bombed, right? And they had their own kind of doctrine of what they wanted to be, who they are as a people, who they are as a culture. And I think if you look at the Russia taking it, it's much more aggressive post-World War II, but not really being aggressive. It's fronting a lot of things. Like, so I think...
You're saying because the Soviets couldn't keep up.
Well, they couldn't, but back then the old Cold War was about arms, yes. Right? The Cold War really became, I think it started off
and really it was about industry, who could crank out more material,
but also for the
potential war.
Owning areas I think is huge. Like if you look right after World War II, what happens is Korea, right? Russia went into Korea before the Korean War happened. They talked to the North, right? They're trying to put in their bids as to becoming now a power and having military power in a history, but also being a geopolitical player. Right? So I think these things it was fighting over communism, whether it's Korea, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's Afghanistan back in the day, like it's communism and backed, or it's more of, I don't want to even say the word freedom, but just blocking communism, that this idea of bad is funding the war. Yes. So if you look at China as a player in this, to go back to this communist thing, I mean, CCP, it has an ideology that's tied more closely with currently with a Russia, a North Korea, a North Vietnamese.
I don't think the CCP is very closely tied with Russia. Russia's no longer communist. I don't think they have been since '88.
They're not, but
it's still an oligarchy.
It's about old doctrine and ideas in certain ways, but you still have leadership and people that'll make things happen and fight to have your country. Like communism maybe didn't have a chance because no one gave it a chance to truly fight for it. Just like maybe American freedoms and democracy had a chance, but if no one's fighting for keeping it pure, you know, there's always going to be someone to intercept the big guy.
Yeah.
This is I think. And I think it's political power. Or just power
and wealth
for creating the laws and the rules. And you fare very well off of it, because if you're on the top, you're always going to be able to skim more. Your job at the office, maybe you can skim paper clips, but if your job is being the president, well, paper clips at that level are going to be pretty fucking nice.
I don't even think the president is making the decisions to skim a little bit. I think that the people we think of as elected leadership, our politicians, they are paid frontmen. And you have some of the wealthy banking families like the Rothschilds and the sort of the industry barons from the early industrial age, like Carnegie's and who's the other one? Rothschilds, Carnegie's. You know what I'm talking about. Vanderbilts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That old money that has been in these, consolidated amongst these very small groups for a long, long time. I think they are the ones who own the politicians.
Yeah. And so that's where I find China interesting. Like, to keep going into this Cold War idea.
That's the one I couldn't say.
Rockefeller.
What do you guys think about the you sent us that link or the video the other day of is it Jackson Brown, the gal who was talking about, like, well, basically we want to do something about the First Amendment. 'Cause
Oh,
it was getting on
she's
our-
a Supreme Court justice, Ketanji Jackson or something like that.
Yeah, I thought it was Ketanji Jackson
And
Brown. Or something.
her direct quote was that she thinks the First Amendment is too restrictive for the government.
Yeah. Now,
that's a problem.
What do you think about that in regards to why would they give a shit? Is that because it messes with their ability for re-election?
Yeah, they need to censor people.
The problem is they're too worried about elections and less worried about getting the fucking job done. What are you like?
Because they're proclaiming democracy. If you're truly fighting for democracy, it's because you believe in certain leaders that have good skills, right? And you should be fighting for the vote to be pure and that anyone can be on the ballot. When you're controlling the ballot but screaming democracy, that's when you become a tyrant. That's the move of the Soviet Union throughout the entire time. That's
the attempt in modern day USA.
Yes, and we're seeing it again. That's why I was like, it'd be interesting to talk about Cold War because you have the old Russia Cold War, but I think the China Cold War is a new type of Cold War because someone else wants to become number one. And it's not necessarily based off of power like technology like nukes. This is a new era of communication, and it leads for a lot of tomfoolery and fuckery.
I don't even think it's a Cold War. I think China is making its moves, and we're just too dumb. We're too used to the idea of kinetic warfare with bombs and artillery that we're like, we don't see it.
But if the moves are not hot,
exactly,
it's a cultural war.
Yes,
and it's never gonna get hot.
But it's like a.
But you're still at war.
It's both cultural war and a bit of a hostile takeover. Just the way they're buying up property. They have police stations all over the world, including they had some in the U.S.
Oh, every Chinatown has a fucking police station.
Yeah,
make no mistake.
That's not a Cold War move. That's a passive aggressive active maneuver.
Until it turns hot, you think?
It's not going to turn hot. They don't want it to be hot.
They don't want it to turn hot. They don't want to destroy the infrastructure and have to rebuild it.
So you think like keep death by 1,000 cuts, like eventually like make guns illegal, then it's like you need to turn them in. If you're ever found, you'll be fined. We'll pay you a certain amount for a gun, you know?
Well, it's going to get past that. It's going to get to the point where they're like, here's our ruling. Yeah. And you need to turn these in otherwise. And if you thought COVID was bad, get your shot or else. People are gonna like.
Yeah, but that ruling
come down so hard, and it's gonna come so quick. It's gonna come so quick, and they're gonna say. I mean,
what do you think the NRA would do?
Nothing.
They're a paper tiger.
Nothing.
If they were like, but there goes.
We'll write them a very angry letter.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be better to go down and
when somebody's knocking on your fucking door? What do you think the NRA is gonna do? Yeah. The same thing.
No, I know,
cops.
But that's like your country's been taken in a certain way. I mean, just an authoritarian blanket like that.
No, it's going.
But that's where
going
you
to fall to individual citizens.
But that goes to civil war then. Like this goes into my idea of like the power is not the nuke, the power is the idea and getting civilizations to turn on itself. You know, that's our new Cold War. Is collapse.
Political power.
Political, but also the person's intent and what they think. Like to get a citizen to be like, I would gladly give up my arms.
Would it be like bringing in several million immigrants from another country and then putting them in the police force and military where they don't have loyalty to the United States citizen?
They
Constitution,
loyalty to the people who brought them here.
Did you see that thing Elon posted today? It was like a 2-minute video about how the Democrats are funding all the refugees over. So it's giving them how many new seats in districts?
It's like 13.
12 or 13. Yeah. And it's like, that's a lot of power.
Yep.
And how it wants to be a one system ruled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's dirty as fuck. And
but wouldn't that
boggles my mind that so many people are not recognizing it.
But isn't that the perfect war? That's the perfect Cold War in my idea, is one that you don't have to lose any lives for the most part.
Maybe
you spend no bullets
from a country
it's
you don't
an
care
ideology.
about.
It's an ideological war that's being, and
Yeah.
we're being transformed. We're being transed.
The whole country's transing.
But it's weird too. It's over these same things that we used to talk about as the enemy of the Cold War, like these thoughts more of socialism or group.
Since
But
Biden
then it's like
has
you
taken
see-
office, we have lost more rights and freedoms, and have potentially lost more than any time I can remember. And maybe with Donald Trump in office, or a Republican or whatever, people feared, this small group of people feared about not being able to have their sex change paid for, or not be able to have it, or a woman's right to choose is being questioned, and Roe v. Wade getting overturned, and all these different things. But that's really, it doesn't seem to me like that affects as many people. And maybe I'm wrong. And maybe I don't necessarily think it should have been overturned, right?
No, I don't care.
At the end of the
Freedom.
day,
If you want abortion, get abortion. If you don't,
and when certain people, I go back and forth on it, right? Like, but at the same time, it's like, hey, you're gonna have to deal with your decisions at some point. Yeah. So let that be on you, the individual and the doctor, But then those same people are hollering at you. You need to get this shot. You need to get the shot. You got to do this. You can't choose, So it's kind of say what I, do what I say, not as I do kind of thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, you see that a lot in communism when it seems like people on top are always doing better. Like they say do these things, but your life never changes. And I think that's where you've never seen communism work well, or a form of socialism work well in the world, except for, once again, I go to China. Because somehow China seems to have paired up capitalism and communism.
I don't know, like they were locking their citizens in their apartment buildings and hosing them down with fucking drones.
I'm not saying what they. A lot of babies ended up in dumpsters.
No, but if we're talking about
recall,
but we're not talking about morals. We're talking about power. And if this is a Cold War or a war, it's because it's two people with power behind them: the United States and China. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it.
Communism worked its way into America, regardless of what anybody thinks. It ended up in our government. It's still in our government.
Yeah.
It's an ideology, and we as an American,
they call it progressive now.
We as an American, well, yeah, exactly. Well, at some point, the only thing we can do, and at this point, it's probably too late, but not buying shit that's made in China.
Yeah.
Like that's a true way to combat like all of this. And everybody goes, "Whoa, everything's made in China." Well, go without. Do without. Like we could do a lot if everybody wanted to try and pull together.
I don't think you could just pull that plug overnight.
Fuck no. Okay. No way. No, I'm not saying any of that, and I guarantee I'm wearing stuff that was made in China. I guarantee it.
I'm thinking more of just like parts for infrastructure that are probably made over there. The plastic wrap for all your food in the grocery store is probably made there.
Yeah.
If you went just nothing from China, we'd all starve to death pretty fast.
But none of that.
But that's the thing is like we need to bring it all back to the U.S. And if that's truly like the way to get power back here,
it is,
because everybody is
become independent as a nation, not just like.
But that's bad leadership.
Great if us as individuals are independent.
It's planned leadership.
Yeah, but that's bad leadership on our part. Like, even being the citizen in my life is wild and complex. Like, your government should be bringing those jobs, creating strength.
They should want
creating that. For such a long time in the 70s.
I thought you were trying to contradict us.
No, I agree.
That
your government is the one who you should be wagging the finger at.
Yes.
Like the people have any choice as to where anything's made. This is the fact that every label on the back of a t-shirt says China instead of the United States is a fault of your government. It's weak leadership.
Yeah, well, corrupt leadership that got bought.
Yeah.
Not necessarily weak. They just were greedy and sold themselves out.
And everybody wants to say, "Oh, that's just capitalism. That's capitalism. That's just capitalism."
No, it's
A little bit.
Bullshit.
It's corruption.
No. It's things that have been put in place to make it harder to do your business in the U.S. That's it.
Well,
plain and fucking simple. It is the government putting tariffs or not tariff, but the taxes on U.S. citizens trying to do business here.
Yeah.
That is the problem.
Yeah. Think about how oppositional the government is when you try to run a small business. They are not your friend. They are your motherfucking enemy, and they let it be known at every step of the way.
That is the problem. It is the U.S. government stopping people from doing things in the guise of safety, right? In the guise of
Climate.
The Green New Deal is so much that's communism right there, dude.
Yeah.
Greta Thunberg, fuck that little bitch. Is she like 16 or something? Sorry, Greta. Good luck on that driver's license.
Sorry, Greta. Sorry, Brent.
Yeah,
Let's be honest. Wow.
that's one.
That's one.
Brent
That
count.
might be
That's
two
one on the
with
Brent
that
count.
one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you got two.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
two.
It's two Brent
Yep.
points.
All right.
You write it down, Jordan.
Yeah, marked it.
Yeah.
We love you, Brent. Yeah. So that's the situation, right? So if there's a way to do more with less as far as your day-to-day
The
life,
Green New Deal did not get signed into law, I thought.
who
It's more
knows,
like
dude?
it's
It's
the
an
climate,
ideology.
The climate accords or the Paris Accords or whatever the fuck that's called that Biden re-signed right when he took
Trump
office.
pulled us out, though,
Exactly.
like a PIMP.
His pull-out game is sweet.
And it's also like the
Yeah, it was.
the DEI stuff, the diversity, equity, inclusion is the other half. It's climate, DEI, and
It's all woven in.
yeah.
It's the same thing. That's why someone says woke, and it's like, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
It
all
covers that
encompassing.
gambit.
Yep. And what it is it's just a veil for crashing.
Communism.
It's crashing the country so that the authoritarian globalist regime can move in. And we were talking off air about all the signs of a planned famine coming. And I think that is the chaos that the WEF wants. One of their slogans is "From chaos comes order." So if you create a global famine, when people are starving, they're going to, anybody who can pass out food, great, you're in charge now. And that's how we will end up with that is their plan, to end up with a globalist one world government.
Okay, so
And it will be communist because, as they have said, you will own nothing and be happy, which means they own everything. And I don't think anybody's going to be happy.
So I don't think I'm this far yet. I can see it though, and it makes a lot of sense. To me, this is still world powers fighting, but I've heard someone say, I think it was a professor at Boston, but he's like, we are in a new Cold War where it is I want to phrase it properly, but it is democracy versus aristocracies, like individuals. So like a Putin or a China, or what we would say like America, we have democracies.
You do not think there is a push for sort of authoritarian oversight of the entire world?
Yes.
And where does that come from?
No, something's pushing.
It's not coming from China. I think China is in concert with the WEF because they both have sort of those authoritarian aims, but the WEF is attempting to put a authoritarian rule over the Western world.
In the fact that we're
but I
allowing it to happen.
But then if China becomes superpower and they're like, I don't want in this, then they're the real superpower because they're telling the organization that gets everyone involved that fuck you. No, it's still political moves. So that's what I mean. A democracy where it's like, we're a group and we can choose, or you have an ideologue or a one ruler saying this is how it is, like a Russia telling the people how it is, like a China telling the people, like a North Korea telling the people how it is. But it's like when you look at democracy, it seems like democracy is always funded by money. And the more money you have, that person's going to have the loudest voice with the most amount of money. But
that's the corruption in it. That's not
Yes.
that's how it gets corrupted with lobbyists and
is it corrupted or that's how it works? I think we just need to have money, like, seriously put out of politics.
Yes.
Like, it takes money to run it, but it's
lobbying should be illegal. And
Yes.
term limits need to be imposed. You could
100%.
fix a lot right there. And you could fix a real lot with the economy if you just put a flat tax, 11%. No dicking around with lawyers and deductions and whatnot. No, you have the biggest corporations in the United States pay no taxes because they've got enough money to afford the lawyers to cut the deals. And the government signs the deals because they say, hey, if you don't, Boeing tells Washington State, if you tax us, we'll just leave the state. Yeah. So Boeing pays no fucking tax. And they sign a lot, you know what I mean? So meanwhile, I'm paying, 30% just on my little tiny business that barely limps along. Shut the fuck up. Just everybody pays 11%. And then...
Yeah, a tax is a necessary thing, without question. We all know this, right? What is a fair tax and what actually matters, right? At some point, like today, we were kind of talking about this on my walk to work, my half-mile walk to work, and I see within 3 hobos, doing the fucking Tai Chi dance that they do, like every morning. These guys are after it.
They're in the park.
They're
in Tai
after
Chi.
it. Yeah. I was like, man, these guys are really. They're starting to, and it's that hunched over, sway that they do. Always holding some tinfoil for some reason. I don't know what that's about. But on the walk up, you see this, and then I see, I think I counted 5 or 6 broken car windows. Like, nobody pays for that except us.
Yeah.
Right? Like in Seattle, they're
Oh yeah, that you pay for that with your insurance.
Yeah.
well, we'll pay it for
have
insurance, which is another thing. Like that's another fucking deal, right? Whereas we have to have insurance to allow people to do shit like that. We have to have these things that are put in place are not because nobody should be breaking into people's cars, right? No. Like that should be known. You shouldn't have to worry about shit in your car. People just shouldn't be breaking into it. That is how people need to act. But we are allowing that to happen.
We've become so accepting of the fact, people do break into
They're
cars.
Oppressed.
When did that change?
They don't
exactly.
they don't have the money. They don't have the things. You know what? That one fucking bitch. She was trying to
3-4.
Yeah, 3. Mark it down. And that one was worth it because she was trying to. That's just actual explaining what she is. She was trying to become the attorney general in Seattle, right? Or is it attorney general, or what's the?
I don't know.
Is she making up rules, right? So anyway, this fucking whore, she was trying to say we need to have a small amount of like a fund to make people whole again.
The happiness fund?
The disenfranchised fuck you over. So when they go and steal a bunch of stuff, we just draw from this fund.
Oh, so they're going to tax people for that?
Fuck yeah, they're going to tax. I mean, what else would they do? Where are they going to get the money? Anything that they decide they're going to do is coming from us. So it's just like, hey, we need to allow these people to do what they're going to do because because they just can't help it. No, you know what? They can. Put them in that fucking cannon and feed them to the killer whales.
Yeah. Orcas.
Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Here you go.
Like, let's just stop doing it's ridiculous. When I'm walking up and I see 5 cars in a row, just tink, 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 tink. Somebody, it's like, what are we talking about? These people, like I said, the Tai Chi guys just getting after it. And then I walk back.
Yeah.
And mind you, there's a tent right there. Like, and not a tent, but like a city, a little block. Right, that's probably would take up, I don't know, 20,
nice little
30 yards of a football
yeah.
field.
Yeah,
right, and it's just right there, and it's like guaranteed. You walk down in there, and you're gonna see those guys with that property in their little freaking village, and they are allowed to be there. Like it is
supported.
100%. Like
it's not just allowed. It's basically encouraged.
And that's their house. So you're not allowed to go in there and find out that they're fucking raping people or doing whatever the fuck they're doing.
Trafficking kids.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or they're illegals, or they have guns, or they have whatever they have that's illegal and they're not doing good things with. Yeah. They're allowed to be there, and that's okay. And that's accepting. Who the hell figured that is where we would be right now?
And you know where all that comes from is the
Cold War.
Unaccepting. It's people, the fear of people.
But you're poisoning a generation.
Yes,
that is what it is. It's an ideal that
it's Cold War. It's mind. That's what I mean. It's not bombs. This is all mental. If you can have your citizens say that that's a good thing, you've won the entire war. So this is a new war.
This shit. I saw on the way over here. I saw some cocksucker with a fucking Biden-Harris flag on there. Oh man, I thought about stopping and just knocking and be like, "You guys are dumb, huh?
Yeah,
you got a case of it."
It's unbelievable to me the number of people who can't figure out, going back in time here a little bit, that government programs mean paid for by all of us.
Yeah.
And B, that people are looking around and going, I'm going to vote for more of this because, and somehow this is another part of the mind virus, which is, think of the like public relations machine that cranked into action when Trump was elected in 2016. And how they created the, what do they call it? Like Trump derangement syndrome? TDS. And these people who are so like his voice and his mannerisms and just his look, like it sends them through the roof. It's like, hang on a minute, there's plenty of people I don't like, but I can listen to them talk on TV and not lose my shit, or I can see a picture of them and not have a meltdown. But somehow this mind poison, however it works, however they set it in, got these people to be so like emotionally unstable at the thought of one person that they are literally, they look around and they see all this shit and they go, well, at least it's not Trump. And to them, they're like, I will take this all day long over having, but that's almost beyond culture.
Journalism.
Remember when the Seahawks were doing really good in the Super Bowls when Russell Wilson was here, and you could walk around Seattle and you go, see, and all of a sudden somebody would say, Hawks, right? Yeah. That's what it is. It's the same thing on a grander scale.
Yeah.
It's
tribalism. It's team.
And that is acceptance of one side that's really, and it goes both ways.
I'm wondering how you convince people that the tribe,
but it's also the news, because you have
drug addiction and just fucking rampant crime is a good tribe to be in.
Fear of acceptance.
But
fear of not being accepting.
But it's also like, look at young people. I can see this where they're like, Trump is fucking Satan and Hitler had a baby. He's the worst, right? But then old people too will reiterate the same kind of things. Like, why is a 60-year-old person telling me Trump's a rapist? It's like, well, because they're getting news from a particular source.
At 2024, how are people not seeing through this? It's not well hidden.
But this is what we all go for. Live hard. People live comfy. And your daily life is your daily life. And what the person says on the TV is what they say on the TV. Like Jordan said, if there was like that blackout that happened, how long would it take for people to notice? Well, the smart people would notice right away. The slower people and caught up in their normal life,
I think the dumb people would notice why is my phone not working?
All those 10 cities.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they got cell phones just like me and you, but we pay for them.
Yeah, but I think it would take time, and so it's like I think it's the same with citizens. They're like, oh, they're saying Trump's the devil, this guy's the worst, and they just did it again with the bloodbath thing, talking about China manufacturing cars in Mexico and selling them in America for super cheap. And he goes, well, it's going to be a bloodbath here if they do that, talking about the car market.
Yeah.
But then you have all these people saying he's a J6er, he's promoting murder and another January 6th. And it's like everyone's involved with this. That's why for me, if you're really going Cold War and culture, how do you affect culture? You affect the news. You affect the schools.
So hang on, Mike.
You affect media, the movies, the music that's around it.
Hang on.
This is a Cold War.
So what I'm saying is I get that the news does all this stuff because they're paid to do it. Like they are paid propagandists.
Everything does it, though.
What I'm saying is it is so blatantly obvious at this point.
Yeah.
How is the average person still watching it and going and just full buy-in? Full buy-in. They're not, when you see that,
Look at the polls.
You should go,
but how did Trump's last polls do? I
don't trust the polls because they come from the news channels.
Well,
True.
Remember, we went to bed in 2016 thinking Hillary had won.
You're seeing more of a red wave, and people that I knew were more blue are starting to turn more red. Maybe we're getting to the boiling point where your people, the normal citizen, is starting to see this, being like, dude, shit's fucked up. They're waking up. Imagine what you were thinking 3 years ago. Now they're hitting that point. It's going to take a little bit longer for them to keep
Do you think the election
seeing.
will be fair?
No, I don't think they're ever fair. Remember hanging chads when Gore and Bush happened? And it was like the biggest thing because of hanging chads in Florida.
Hanging chads.
Like the tear off ticket.
Oh.
All I remember is hanging chad scandal. And that's why I
thought it was a voting machine thing. Or was that?
It didn't perforate or completely rip off paper. And the hanging pieces were called chads. And so it was called hanging chads. And it was in Florida. And it tipped the race.
Because nobody
between
likes
Gore.
Chad.
Yeah, they had to do the recount, right?
Every guy named Chad wears way too much hair gel. Let's be honest. Fucking Chad. Sorry, Brent. That's one for Mike.
Yep, we're on 8. Yeah, I am.
But
hold on. What do we do as an individual seeing this happen to prepare ourselves and our families and our community? Because let's be honest, we will vote. Don't not vote because of this. Don't not try and use your dollars to make sense, right? We don't want to just go buy a bunch of crap from China. We don't, and that's really all we can do, right? We can try and vote the right way. We can try and use our dollars in the right way, and that's about it.
And speak out.
And and be vocal.
And
be vocal about how this is absolute horseshit.
Go to school board meetings.
But using your dollars is one of the best
meetings.
answers if you believe in capitalism. The problem is that our dollars are allocated without our consent. So using your dollars,
well, we're paying taxes. We're paying taxes, and maybe that's part of it. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe being
not,
allocated to nefarious sources.
Maybe do that job under the counter. Right. Maybe go and take care of some things without paying the big man. Yeah. Who's going to use our money for nefarious things, right? Who's going to take and wash it in Ukraine?
Oh, we 100% need a smaller government that is not involved in so many social projects. The problem is it's here. So getting rid of it is not as simple as just
it's pulling weeds, dude. And they're always going to be there.
Without
getting rid of bamboo. Yeah. Good luck.
I don't see a way to downsize the government. I don't think it's actually possible.
No.
Which brings that actually brings up. I was just going to say that means it has to eventually crash, and it feels like the empire is burning.
So that's what I'm asking. So what is it that we do with said dollars, and what do we buy with said dollars? Do we need?
Now we're getting into like a prepping episode. Let's stay on. Cold
Okay,
War.
sorry. It's cold war time.
It's chilly around here.
It's cold.
I'm sorry. I have more to say, but can I take a pee break?
Yeah, I got pee too.
Yeah, I think
we're back.
Bring us back, Mike.
Check.
Are we going?
Yep, we're on.
Oh, we're hot mic. So when we finished up, bacon. When we finished up, Jordan. When we finished up, Jordan, you were saying like, what can I do? Like, what can I do with my dollar? What can I do with my actions? What can I do? Anything. I think it's your thought, inflicting other thoughts upon other people. What can I do? And this is something I battle with all the time, because it's like you take in all this information and you start to see a way the world really works, or maybe it's not being ran in the best way. How could I make a difference? And I think how can people, us as a common person, how can we make a difference? How can we collectively, as a group, as the United States, make a difference? What are the ways that you can really combat these things in your life that you see happening? And I'll be the first to say, I don't know. And I don't know what to do. That's
a lot of fucking help.
yeah. But what you can do when you admit defeat like that is you can start to surmise ideas, and you can start to contemplate ways to overcome obstacles. That's something beautiful, I think, in jiu-jitsu or in things you put in front of you physically at the moment that are hard, that you have to figure out a way to overcome. And it might not happen at that moment, but in a month or something, say you maybe figure it out. There has to be a solution to these things. There has to be either it's something that pulls people together, or it has to be something that's shown to educate or give enlightenment to people to understand more. But to me, if that's understanding, that's still pulling everyone together under one umbrella. So what is an umbrella? Can money be an umbrella that pulls people together? Maybe, but money, like we said, it can be nefarious and used for weird ways like political sway and reason. Can commerce?
Well, hang on. What if we go too strong on not spending money on Chinese goods and they call in all their debt? Because they also own all our debt. They can crush our dollar tomorrow.
With what? How? What does that mean?
It means they purchased our debt.
Yeah, no,
and so they can call it in and literally like, hey, we're withdrawing our money from your banks.
They're a bank. So imagine how you go to the bank. China is also a bank because it has money.
It has American debt. So literally like...
Okay. Which keeps their country running. Yeah, I could be wrong. I don't know.
A little bit. I mean, I'm sure it provides some income, but compared to manufacturing, I'm sure it's very minute.
Who buys their manufacturing?
The world.
The world, yeah.
The entire world, or what?
Yeah.
90% of it,
well,
or some crazy
you make an interesting point, though, which is that we may be enough of their consumer base that it's not in their interest to crash our dollar.
That's exactly it.
Because we do run on Chinese shit.
Yeah, but that's the same people that welded people into their houses during COVID.
True. I was just going
So like,
that was going to be my next point.
They
may be willing to tank their economy a little bit to
'Cause
take
they
out
have
an enemy
people.
because they have a goal. Their goal is to become the world superpower.
So what
And-
end? Like what would they do with that?
It's part of their belief in their people and who they are. It's a culture. They are an old culture. It's hard for Americans, I think, for us to understand because our country is 270 or whatever many years old. And did I get that right?
Yeah, sure.
250.
Yeah,
250.
we've been around.
Some of these, these old cultures have been around for thousands of years.
Dynasties.
And so to them, yeah, exactly. Xi Jinping, he's not concerned with short-term consequences of a downturn economy. He's concerned with restoring the Chinese empire to its glory.
And that was my issue with.
And for him, if it doesn't happen in his lifetime, that's okay, as long as he's making moves toward that end.
And that was my issue with the Supreme Court justice doing what she was doing, wanting to mess with the First Amendment to deal with current issues that they're having, be based on re-election, and how short-minded that is versus what is good for the country in the long run. Yeah. Guess what? Don't mess with the Constitution.
No.
Stop. You guys are screwing it up when they start messing with that to the ends of this is going to help people get elected. And the fact that people aren't realizing that, they're so worried and so scared that they're giving up rights, right and left, because they're being brainwashed. And it's such a short window we live that if we keep going down this rabbit hole or this route, we're leaving nothing for the people after us that we're experiencing. And that's kind of what we want. I think that's the end game. That's kind of the goal, is to leave America powerful and prosperous,
which is, again, why we have the mind virus, doing things like taking the Pledge of Allegiance
out of schools,
because that reduces pride in the nation. And then you call anybody who flies an American flag a white nationalist. Why is nationalist a bad word? It's not. Nationalist is somebody who believes in the country. And like, if you say I love America is nationalist, but they've taken the word nationalist and made it a slur. White nationalists are the problem. Why? Because we believe in that the United States is a great country and we want it to continue. Mm-hmm. That makes me a racist and a domestic terrorist. A white nationalist. Mm. I am a white nationalist.
Yep.
Fuck you.
To go
mark it on the calendar or on the fucking scorecard.
I'm gonna give you 2.
Tic-tac board. Yeah. See, but this is where it gets into, if you have one leader, like, to give a attaboy, I guess, to communists or communist countries, you can keep your leader in for a long time. And the rules that you want to have the country abide by, if you say so, you
it's
can
much easier
make it
to follow,
to happen, right?
Dynasty type.
So in that idea, like, to run a country for 20 years and then your next person's in office, it's probably going to be a lot easier to get a vision or an idea or to keep a set of morals. Whatever it is in your country, it's easier to keep that going. But if I go back to freedom, it's like, well, I want the people to kind of have a voice. So a thing like an amendment maybe not isn't a bad idea. Like slavery, right? There's certain things you can change. So it's like we have to recognize that we evolve and we grow. Like people say, how about a Bible written for 2020?
We're taking away rights.
Yeah.
That's what I have an issue with, is the taking away of rights.
Yeah.
It's not giving people rights.
Yeah.
Great. Give them rights. Taking away.
You can't write a new Bible without free speech.
And I understand, like, I understand that very, to a basic level, right? Like, black people were considered property.
Yeah.
And not human, subhuman, right? And when they were given the ability to vote, and
they're like a third of a person.
Yeah, but I mean, when that became a thing, right? That's good. That's great. And that's an addition to the Constitution.
Yeah.
Right? Not a subtraction.
That's a very good point. And taking things away.
And when we're trying to do things, we're losing gun rights, losing the right to say things. That's crazy. That weakens our country. It weakens our people. And that was what that stuff was put in there for.
But then they're playing off something written in our Constitution, having amendments, having the ability to change. But it's not changed based off of real popular vote. It's changed based off of a group of elected officials saying this.
They want to keep their job.
So it's not true representation of the people. This is where Mike Zedong, what's up, boys, comes into effect, because his idea is the government represented by the citizens. A way to have like a Facebook group, if you will, just to the layman's, but your vote matters. Your identity's there and your vote's there. And if on a large scale, what does voting do?
You're saying everything's settled by popular vote.
Yeah.
Then we don't even need a leader or a politician. We just go by the votes.
Thanks, Zuck. Way to do it, Zuckerberg. You got us there. But that's representation. This is where, to me, I always think about government. It's like, what do you do? It's like, well, how are people being...
We need elected officials. We need people whose job it is.
No, you need representation. You're being represented through an elected person. replace the word person with something else. You need representation. How do you get represented? How
Mike,
do you
Mike
heard
wants
of
AI to run the country.
A little bit. Could be nice in certain ways. Yeah.
I don't know.
But it's
I saw
who's
what Google's
running
AI
it.
did.
Yeah. But I don't want Google running it, but the ability
who would?
to have a technology.
That's the problem with having a one world leader, Mike Zedong. Is
No,
that
you could have open source, so everything, all the code can be given over.
Only to the
if
people
you
who
have an
understand
elected code that you like, and it's open source, so everyone can have like
I don't
obtain
want
it.
to argue Mike Zedong's ideas anymore.
But that's the idea of a Bitcoin, right? Like the American dollar inflates because we
You
say
pay
it
tax
has
on those
this,
Bitcoins?
it
You
has
do.
this value, but you can print more money, right? The American dollar, and you can print more money, and now we have this much more money. Like the idea of encryption for digital currencies through Bitcoin is like file sharing. Everyone that's part of has Bitcoin that's involved is part of the community. Every 7 minutes, it does an automatic check and it logs everyone's account to check everyone's ping, right? If things are shifted instantly, it knows there's only this much Bitcoin tracked in the world, right? So it gives you a way that through a community, you can have accountability. But honesty has to be there. Here's the problem. All these ethereal ideas, just like communism, it's great in theory. And then you say, carry it out. Whoever carries it out gets greedy.
Yeah.
That's where all of these ideas
Well,
are probably
that's
great
where-
in certain ways, but
that's
it's
where having-
the controller.
That's where having term limits comes into play. Term limits, and then also eliminating the lobbyists, right? Lobbying for a corporation that's going to be in business for 70 fucking years, and working them into making law. That's got to stop. And we have allowed, and I understand, like, people are after money and they're willing to do everything, but I mean, as a very young kid, they said we're not supposed to have monopolies.
Yeah.
That is a joke.
Yeah.
How have we managed that?
Yeah.
The monopolies are running the fucking country, and there's laws against it.
Yeah.
What are we doing to break up those monopolies? Should we? I think so.
Yes.
I think that's where we're getting into government, where it's like, hey, we need government.
Do you mean monopoly like how they said gas cars are supposed to be out, like banned by 20?
Monopoly, like legally, it's not a monopoly because one umbrella company owns the two companies that are competing.
Disney.
With each
Yeah,
other.
but you're telling someone, once again, restriction.
there-
Yes,
at-
can't
and
do
at
this.
some level,
you're driving electric car companies. There's so many
when that
companies.
company is found to be fucking with the government,
it's fucking with the market. It's manipulating the market. When one company owns the two competitors, they're manipulating the market, and that should be illegal.
Yes.
and that's
why
where
monopolies are
monopolies,
illegal.
yeah, and that's why
But
we
there's
should.
so many ways around it. It's like a thinly veiled, yeah, we're just. It doesn't actually do anything because when you follow the.
I would have.
Have you
to
guys
say
ever seen
this.
that bubble chart that shows
Gas
all
is
the
probably
big
like the 7
corporations
companies that own
and
everything?
at the top, yeah, exactly. It's like General Mills, Nestle, and whoever else. There's 7 to 10 companies that literally own everything.
Yeah, and that's a problem. That is absolutely a
Well,
problem.
And that's your quote unquote they. Is the people at the top of those companies are the ones who own your politicians and run your deep state.
Well, I'll say this. I've never felt there's been a time where business and government has been more entwined throughout the history of
Illegally
the United.
so.
Yeah. But yeah.
and that's the issue. So we need to eliminate that.
I
Term
shouldn't say
limits.
illegally so, immorally so.
So then that goes back to
Inappropriately
Well,
so.
no, I think it is illegal.
I think
And
that
I
they
think
toe
laws
the
have
line of
been-
the law. I think they toe the line of the law through all their shell companies, but it's fucked up and it's obviously an abuse of
it's
the system.
yeah, it is against the spirit of the deal.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that's
For
what
sure.
lawyers are.
Yeah.
That's why you hate lawyers.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
Because they just find ways to work it, and if you have enough money and can pay enough lawyers,
keep working it.
Guess
To
who the
work.
judge used to be?
Yeah.
Find
He
the
was a
hole.
lawyer too, so he goes to the same golf club, and everybody likes an envelope full of cash.
Do you think there should be a restriction on suing?
What's that?
Should there be a restriction on suing?
Yes. 100%.
Oh boy, you guys are
Yeah,
right
people are
there.
suing each other for everything now.
And that's
It's
and that's
so fucking
why
retarded.
we have to have such high insurance rates. That's why we can't be who we want to be. That's why people can't say what they want to say.
Do you think
Hosting
we've
events on
given
your
worried.
because everybody's worried about liability insurance.
Do you think
Stop
we've given
it.
law too much power?
Yes.
Like to pay the most for the most skilled lawyer gives you the ability to bend language and
Yeah, do whatever you want.
do you-
Affluenza? What the fuck?
What?
Remember that kid who got off because he was affluent?
affluenza.
Remember that? And they made up that term.
Oh.
And it was because I forget
Rich kid
what did he do?
syndrome.
Yeah, what did
I
he do?
don't know.
He did
Murdered,
something.
date
Murdered
raped
something.
or
Yeah.
something. Who knows?
And
Sorry if it's wrong.
They called it affluenza, and he got away
Holy shit.
because it was now a thing. But you think that is 100% affluenza, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
yeah, you pay the lawyer enough and you can
Yeah,
walk.
and you're good to go. and that's a issue that we have. I think people are way too sue happy. I think people are way too sensitive, even though they want to be open-minded and say they're open-minded. And the reality is, if you don't agree with them, it's just like colleges. You know, if diversity in aesthetics and that's it. Right? Like you start going down different ideas. That's not what they want. That's not what any of these corporations want. They want people that are going to go to work, come home, watch Netflix, and watch their Disney movies.
Yep.
And then be freaking just any freaking movie that you watch, just pay attention to how things are woke. And you'll find it all day long in everything. And it's so irritating. And then like they say, okay, we need to have more representation of color in movies. Okay, well, to what end? And this is going to sound so racist.
You're talking like when they start getting historically inaccurate in order to cast people of different races into
Like Google.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that show? God, I can't remember. Jen was watching it. It was about Great Britain in like the 19th century, but they cast it with black people. It's like British people in
Pretty
the
sure that didn't
1800s
happen.
were not black.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name.
Cinderella.
Their best soccer team.
Yeah,
was
it's
all
just-
black. Yeah, probably.
it's just-
yeah. Bunch of British
And
goofballs
you know
with
what?
bad teeth.
And who cares if it's just is what it is, but it's not. It's there to make a point, and that's what is irritating. It's all there to make a point, and it's there to be like in your face.
Yeah.
It's not like subtly like we just
But it
happen
creates
to.
in
It's
any-
everywhere you look.
It's to create the mind virus in the younger generations.
Well, and to create anxiety and frustration in people who think differently.
yeah.
Right?
you're
Like
probably right.
I'm
Yeah.
worked up over it.
Yeah.
For what reason? Why do I care that Little Mermaid was remade and she's black?
Yeah.
But like, I don't give a shit. Right? Like, but it's just one more thing that has been done to kind of.
Well, certain things where it doesn't make sense. You have two Asian parents and you have a black child. You're like, wait, what happened?
Uh-huh.
You know, unless you're bestowed upon a magical power and you come out looking different. Yeah. I mean, but that's inclusion, diversity, like you're saying. You're trying to make everything appear as
But
it's
if you
one
wanted it
homogeneous
to be
world.
like a representation of America,
Yeah.
16% of the people would be one color, 24% would be another color, 64%, you know what I mean? Like whatever the percentages are, that's how it would break down. And it doesn't break down that way.
Yeah.
And they're doing that for a reason.
Yeah.
It's also creating more racism.
Yeah.
So I would
This
have
is
told
Mao
you that
Zedong classic, though.
racism
This is
was
used for the youth.
Let me finish here, goddammit.
I'm sorry.
Racism was at like an all-time low
Put you on that.
in like the late 90s, about the time we were graduating high school. And now it's back. We have apartheid back in the United States. We have colleges that have events for people of color only.
LGBTQ, whatever.
Yeah, there was some picture making the rounds last week on whatever social media of whatever. It was some college where they're having their DEI trainings, and it's like white people in this room, black people in this room. It's like, guys, this is
Segregation.
This is apartheid.
Yeah.
We banned this as part of the civil rights movement.
No.
What the
it's
fuck?
for a different,
but now,
it's for a
now
different
they call
reason.
it diversity, and somehow it's okay.
But that's Mao Zedong, right? That's the youth fighting against their parents. You don't understand the plight of these other people. As an American, that's kind of a tradition, like to stick up for someone that's got their face in the mud or someone's being picked on. That's a noble character or a trait, but they're using it
How'd
to
you get
weaponize.
to noble trait from
Because that's
apartheid.
Because like the fear of not being accepting is what they're acting on. And somebody is not being accepting, and that's not going to be me. And that's how it's being represented.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get that. Yeah. The social pressure to act this way or be shamed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
and that's Mao Zedong, like youth against the parents. It started in the colleges as a collective of you're not progressive enough.
That's why I say I know this is coming from China, because it's straight out of their playbook from the People's Revolution.
Yeah, you don't think they want to be a war power.
I do think they want to be a war power.
I do too.
Yeah, but I don't think their war is.
They're just smart enough not to fight us toe to toe with all the advanced weaponry. We'd wipe out each. It would be like a mutual destruction. Look what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. It's a mutually assured destruction without nuclear warfare. They're just killing each other off by the tens of thousands.
Yeah. It's not the weapons. It's the culture. You're changing people somehow from the inside.
Well, that's what they did in the 1700s, right? Like the 1800s, and we were talking about the Industrial Revolution, and
communism
the
rising,
coming of the Enlightenment period, and how people are starting to create new jobs, and they're beginning to start thinking of themselves as individuals that have rights and sovereignties, and that was
especially when machines came in,
right? So
the
and
more
that created
machines,
industry.
the more people got laid off.
Yeah, so when that happened, that's kind of what's going on right now with how the mindset has shifted, and it's in those transitions that the ideologies are vastly important. And right now, the ideology that seems to be dominant or is being pushed is one that they want. And it's interesting that they are also the same ideologies that the the World Economic Forum, WEF, and all them, they are also have the same ideology.
Yeah.
As Disney. Why? Why do we see that?
It's money.
It's
That's why Elon said fuck you to Disney.
It's another company and group of people going, we have to control the minds of people. And the way we control the minds of people is to keep them busy, give them food and bread and circus, and slip in what is right and what is wrong. And we can control the way they're the phone, we can control the algorithms, and that's what they're doing. Like there is no
the education.
Yeah. I mean, look at like Rumble, right? That's a thing for more of a freedom.
If you can't be on YouTube, you go to Rumble.
I think, I still haven't been on it, but it's like one of those things where it's not growing to the level, right? People are still, it's hard to switch people over. And, but the fact that you're restricted on YouTube to certain things, you're restricted on, there's so many things that are restrictive to one side, and it's so blatant and in your face. And then I try and ask people about it, and they're like, I don't care. It's like, you should care.
Yeah.
You should, because this is.
I work with a guy who says that same thing, and he has 2 little kids, and it's like, man, you might want to start. Oh, I don't get political. You might want to start paying attention.
Well,
to the way
you
the world
are
is going,
being
because
political.
It affects what you're exactly right. I'm not that worried about the next 10 years. I'm worried about my kids' lives growing up, and that they have opportunities.
The next 50, 100 years.
And that's what I have an issue with that Jackson Brown, whatever her name is. Ketanji Jackson. Is the short-sighted, we need to change the Constitution to affect the vote. That's what they're worried about. And it's like, guys, like, it's not about the vote. It's about holding up democracy and like what it truly means. And it's
right, but they're playing a game. Like, she's part of it. They're playing a game to stay in power. This is no longer for one side, the administration that's in. This is not about maintaining a fair system and a just system. This is about maintaining power, pure and simple.
Yeah, and that breeds.
And people need to see that for what it is, because
it seems to me that
it's a hostile regime at this point. They are attempting to stay in power if it means changing the laws and scrapping the Constitution, which to me makes them a hostile administration to this country. And it's not unthinkable that they may need to be removed by force.
Do you think the Constitution should be rewritten? To address, like,
it is tough to read.
Yeah.
If that's what you mean.
Fuck yeah, it is.
Like,
it's the worst, dude.
I mean, but that's not the font.
Do you think
could be
things
checked.
should take into account more for corruption and what business and internet and communication?
I think
they never saw this world.
I think
being
they need to
this
stick
world.
to it. I
think the first two amendments should be untouchable.
Yes, believe that. But I mean, you can add other things like,
yeah, it was meant. That's why the amendments.
Yeah. But things like, I don't think our forefathers could have even come close to anticipating what a global market is, what true capitalism and money, and what technology as it continues, what it can actually become and provide. And I think they wrote a lot of safe fails that were correct for that time era.
Wrote a lot of what?
Safe fails?
Fail safes.
Fail safe? Safe fails?
But we got it.
You got it? You know where I'm going?
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, one way or the other.
I'm sorry. I'm not military. I'm stickers. I don't know these terms. But I think if they were around today, they would be like, there probably needs to be some things changed or expanded upon, because communication is a huge thing. And business and government have become a huge thing that the government, I don't think, ever saw coming at that time.
Why is it that we want to stifle everybody's ability to say something, but the government won't release what they really mean?
That's right. Yeah. What if I can't
Very
speak
vague.
out? Why won't the government release its documents?
Why wouldn't
The
they?
CDC released a 148-page report on myocarditis after COVID vaccination, and they redacted every single fucking word of it.
Why is
Every
it
last word.
safe?
Every last word.
They still released it in their eyes.
But according to the law, but that's the problem, right? Why is it that we are?
And how do people not see that as a sign of a authoritarian government in the making?
Yeah.
in the making?
Yeah, it's here. Like, it's in your face.
Well,
Yeah.
that goes to lobbyists.
Yeah, that cake has
That's
been
not
baked,
lobbyists.
dude.
That's the government saying,
We're just
fuck
waiting
you.
for
we
the
don't have
fucking
to,
ting.
Hey, go. You know what? We will release this document. We redacted the whole thing. Ha ha. Fuck you.
Yeah.
No, that goes exactly to lobbyists. What drives DC? It is
That has nothing to
weapons
do with
manufacturing, and it is pharmaceuticals.
But it's the
But those are
CDC.
the
It's not a manufacturer. This is the government flaunting in our faces. We don't have to do what the law tells us to do. The law told us to release this report.
Yeah.
We released it, and we blacked out every word. That's the government saying to the citizenry, the laws don't apply to us.
But don't they do that with the Kennedy stuff too? The
Yeah.
reports for the assassination.
Yeah.
We
Why?
release
Why?
new stuff,
Why?
but it's redacted.
Yes, it's the same issue.
But
because
why?
it's damning. Of course, they've done this forever.
But
But
that's
what I'm
the
saying
thing.
is they're becoming so obvious about it.
And that's go back to the
Yes.
Constitution and what that means. And you think there's anything in there that says you shouldn't be able to do that in the spirit of what they fucking said. That's what that everybody wants to argue and get into these like technical terms. When you go down the First Amendment, right to free speech, it shouldn't be changed in any fashion.
Yeah.
We should be able to say whatever we want that doesn't hurt somebody, right? And then all of a sudden, whoa, that opens up a bag of freaking
Hurt
beans.
is
And you go,
interpreted,
whoa,
yeah.
you know, it really is, people quite can't understand what's going on. Then tell the government, if you were so believable, then release what you mean, put it out there. You're the government. You can reach everybody, but you don't. Everything you say is lies. They're lying to us every day. Yeah. And they're laughing about it. The press release, have you ever watched any of those? It's
Jean-Pierre Corre.
Painful.
Yeah.
Jeez, oh my God.
Trump's girl was good. That girl Trump had, do you remember her?
Which one?
Hang on, you're missing the point completely, which is that this Karine Jean-Pierre, whatever the fuck her name is, she also goes up in front of the press. Her job is to communicate policy and decisions to the people of the United States through the press. She just goes up there and either refuses to answer questions or just spews out a bunch of bullshit like talking points.
Yeah.
So once again, that's the federal government.
Redacted.
That's the federal government telling the people, we don't really give a fuck what you think. This is our, you know we're lying. We know we're lying. Fuck you.
Well, it's kind of interesting because Trump said, I want to drain the swamp. And then the next election, the next presidency, the whole cabinet and everything, it's like, this is the joke. Like, this is exactly the swamp. Yep. You're seeing a senile old man and somehow things are still being ran and he's supposed to be the government. Yep. It's like, dude, him being elected is what showed what the swamp was. And I'm not even a Trumper and like drain the swamp, but it's like, that's what you're seeing. Yeah. And I get you. You're taking offense to it. But throughout time, history, the government has released stuff and things always blacked out. But people didn't seem to care so much. They felt like, well, maybe it was protecting names or sources or things that are important.
Partially
medical.
redacted.
Yeah. But now it gets to a point
when they say,
where
hey,
it's
we'll
complete.
release this, but we'll black out every word.
Yeah.
Then that's a message.
But
that's not
changed
a
too.
how do we get around this? That's a direct message to the people of the United States. Fuck you.
Well, it's just you need to know what you need to know, and you're not on a need to know.
No,
basis.
that's we're not going to tell you what we're doing. We don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. You're not on a need to know basis.
Make sure you pay that taxes, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We got to keep this.
There's the sugar tax on
This
Coca-Cola.
printer is using up a lot of ink, blacking out these, and it's costing us quite a bit of money
Yeah.
to pay that extra ink cost.
This violet shade is super expensive.
Yeah.
It's about $2 trillion a carton.
Yeah. Government contract.
Yeah.
All that redactedness.
Yeah, you know how much we have to black out each year?
That's what I'm saying. It's getting expensive,
Copiers
dude.
and Morse making a killing on this.
Yeah, we got to figure out a laser jet or something.
God, there's 7 printers in the last month.
This is ridiculous.
It's out of control.
Yeah.
We did this. Click, click, click.
Oh, man. Well, what do you guys think we do about it?
This is where I left off. Where I was like, so what do you do?
This is where we went to pee break.
I'm ready for another pee break. What do you do? Like I said, I don't know. The only thing I can go to is like do what's right around you. Like feel right with your closest ones, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your kids. Get right with the people around you at work. Try and see what a good working relationship is like there. How do all these things kind of coalesce and connect? And it's like that.
It's going to topple. I think we just if an actual war doesn't break out, which is possible, I don't know how likely. But But this has to topple. The system has to topple because it just keeps getting more and more top heavy. Think about how often you tune in and it's like, oh, Governor Inslee announces new gas tax, or they announce a new regulation that's going to cost you this much. At some point, you're going to get to the point where people just can't afford to live anymore, and then they're just going to go fuck it, and they're going to stop trying. And then the moment everybody stops paying taxes because they can't go to work anymore, the government ceases to exist because they don't make anything, so they can't exist if we are making things and giving it to them. That's what taxes is.
Well, the problem is
we produce and then we give some of our production to the government. And at the moment they make it untenable to produce anymore, they will have destroyed themselves. And they're too dumb to realize that. They don't understand how that works. So they will never stop just trying for more and more and more and more until the point it becomes top heavy and just tips over.
Do you think that's part of the reason they allow homelessness to be what it is? Because they need a place to store man hours? Like the reality is it all comes down to like man hours, paying taxes. You're putting time.
How do we store those by making people homeless?
Because you have to pay.
Pay what?
Taxes. Your taxes are man hours.
Right.
Right? That's all it is.
Yeah.
Right? It's your time.
It's a new revenue source for a government committee, you mean?
They're just, we need it for this.
Now we need
more for this.
Czar.
We need to have money because we need to deal with this problem. That's really not that hard to deal with.
No.
I think it's bad bureaucracy leads to homelessness.
The homeless problem is part of the drug problem, which is part of bad policy.
But that's what I mean.
It's convenient. They'll use anything as an excuse for tax.
And that's what I'm trying to say.
Yes,
right?
it's one of their excuses.
Yes. So they're taking your time to go
to embezzle money in the name of homelessness.
To keep you busy. You have to work your ass off.
Yeah, you're right. No, I have to be up early in the morning, out the door, grinding into the city,
you
work
can't
all
think
day,
about
grind
how
back
this
out.
is.
Yeah, you don't have enough time to actually do anything else.
Exactly. Because they're keeping you busy, just like a child, like a parent dealing with their kids. Yeah. Let's just keep them busy.
Yeah.
Keep them busy till they die.
Yep. Yeah, you're not wrong.
And that is that's kind of the thought of like, what do you do with your life?
But you think the government's producing the homeless to keep,
I think
like
the
an
government
administration
is planning,
or a source of revenue of taxes going towards it?
No, I don't. I think they're maybe looking away from solving the problem as directly as they probably could.
Mike, beer me.
Just because. Oh, no Guinness for you boys, huh?
Oh,
okay.
Not without a cup, buddy.
No, I get it.
I don't mix it in my mouth like Kozak over here.
Anyway, that seems to be, in my eyes, kind of what happens. Is they allow weird stuff that doesn't seem like it needs to be, right, and can be dealt with relatively easy with a little bit of an iron fist.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit because I don't think the homeless problem was created to increase tax revenue. I think the homeless problem was directly a result of China aiding the Mexican cartels and bringing fentanyl up across the border. So this is part of China's.
And who allowed that?
Oh, corrupt politicians who are bought.
Yeah.
So the homeless problem is a drug addiction problem, and the drug addiction problem is part of China's war. Well,
there you go. There you fucking go. Quit buying stuff from China.
Including fentanyl.
Yeah, that's especially, some would say.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get past the thought of man hours, right? And like that's really what it all comes down to.
Well,
and how many man hours?
Man hours is all you have in life. You have time and energy, right? Yeah. So the hours you spend of your life doing whatever, it's literally all you have. So that is why taxation gets so frustrating, because like we said, you grind a 40-hour job, 55 by the time you factor in commuting and whatnot, and you don't have much time left for yourself. And you look around, it's like, what am I doing this for? It's so that I can have this little house and do something fun for half a day on the weekend before I get ready to go again for the next week. And somewhere at the top of all this, somebody's making a killing on my labor.
And not and living a lavish life.
That is why everyone should be pursuing self-employment. Even if you start with like a little tiny side business like what I'm doing, have that goal, have that thing on the side that you're working towards, where you're doing it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think,
and you're still going to get taxed for now until the system crumbles, and then who knows where we go from there.
Well, yeah, and maybe you won't ever be able to do it, right? Maybe the government will say you can't.
If nothing else, you have to try, just so you learn. I mean, just trying to start a business alone will teach you a shitload about civics in this country right now. Mm-hmm. You want to learn what's really going on in this country? Start a small business. You will figure out what's going on.
Fun part about owning a business, I always think, is meeting the clientele.
Yeah.
No two people are the same. You have people with commonalities, but sometimes people you meet with tons of money or something different than you thought they might be, or someone that's super dirt poor. It's kind of different. But it's like, yeah, you get to meet your clientele being a business owner, and that's kind of unique. You know, sometimes you really want to do a good job for a good person. You connect with them.
Do you think that, like, when you look at, like, the way the government was kind of built up, but, like, well, not even our civilization in this country was built up on, like, the thought of you can change classes. Right.
Yes.
This isn't a king and queen.
Upward mobility.
There was upward mobility and downward mobility, which kind of kept some people moving, right? Yeah. But you can change your destiny. Yes. And there's more than there's more than two groups. Whereas in communism, the thought process was there's the working class and the people who are running everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Us and them.
And we are slowly weeding out the middle class. And yes. creating a way of upward yes. mobility is going to be impossible.
Yes.
Take away the yes. jobs first.
Well,
that's the authoritarian regime.
And they are coming in and they're changing what we have. Yeah. And how scary is it to think that
the American dream is
the ladder is being
away.
Lifted and we're not going to be able to touch it.
Yep. Well, so that brings me into, like, why is this happening? What is happening? Why are the walls crumbling? And so I go for China. I have to go for the people with the most amount of money and the most influence. I haven't seen any African. I haven't seen any British.
What about
you got P?
Korea?
What?
K-pop, dude.
I love K-pop.
That's the most influential music right now, I've been told.
As it should be.
Okay, just checking. Yeah. That's really how we get down to the business. Yeah. The brass tacks of it all.
Yeah.
Is these motherfuckers got moves.
Excuse me.
Dance moves.
Yeah.
So I've been told.
K-pop's cool, but it's awesome. Like, look what they came from. Like, North Korea was in the trenches of the trenches post World War II, and they were a flattened society with nothing left, and they were completely decimated. They separated. South Korea got a little bit of American democracy, but I felt like Japan post World War II, they took our doctrine and we kind of oversaw them. But
did they take it, or did they have to eat when they wanted to come to our table?
They took it up the rear because we fucked them over so hard. And same thing kind of happened. Korea was bloody too, dude. Yeah. You think Peleliu is bad? Korea continued the ferocity because Japan had fucked over Korea so many times throughout history.
Just over and over.
That little peninsula had been invaded so much that there was tons of animosity. And we beat Japan. Japan paired with us. Korean War happens. North Korea, the true North Koreans were like, not true, I just mean the North Koreans back then, they saw this alliance of Japan and the United States. And that is not only war, that is hatred. And that fuels racism. That's that kind of energy going into it. I thought we were fighting
the Chinese.
Now, the ball's about to drop.
But who funded North Korea, Tobin?
But it was actual Chinese soldiers.
Yeah, exactly.
Not North Koreans.
Oh, interesting.
Chinese soldiers.
Who funded North Korea? Not only funded, but fought China? Yes. China keeps coming back, dude. Communism moved past Russia. This is where I think all this went. Communism moved past the USSR. I said China did it right because they figured out a way to do communism / socialism with.
No, what they did right was started building.
Yeah.
They started manufacturing.
But they didn't do that until
manufacturing
when? When did they start doing that?
Well,
80s.
Yes.
No, it was before the 80s.
No, pretty much because China was completely closed. They formed capitalism and communism.
What do you mean they were closed? Closed to trade?
Business.
All
Everything.
trade.
Business is done.
Why?
Because
were
China
like an
was so
isolationist.
fucked over post World War II through, I think a lot of it was due.
Didn't they
China
call it like
was
the Hermit Kingdom or
always
something like that?
what?
Didn't they call it the Hermit Kingdom, or is that North Korea?
It might be North Korea.
North
I don't think it
Never
was
mind.
China.
Go-
Maybe, but
Continue.
China was always poor. It was always poor farmers, except for the imperial powers of China to get their soldiers. So what do you need for soldiers? You need a big area, you need good training, and you need tons of food. So most of the land was farmers, and then the other 1% was the soldiers, the imperial class, stuff like that.
So as a society evolves, they have to have something to offer people. And
Yes.
it typically starts with their cash crops, right?
Yes,
What
grains,
their land has to
everything.
offer. the
Then
world.
minerals as you get more advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did they do in the 80s that was brought? Was it?
So
rice?
they already had this stuff before that. What it was trade, opening economic freedom.
So they were poor
in the
in the sense
60s
of the world, right? Or were they able to build their own things back then?
They were able to build their own things.
And why
There was a
don't
point
we
of,
do that? Because it seems to me like the government is constantly pushing things
So-
that we can't pull oil out
Bad
of certain
leadership.
places.
Bad
We
leadership,
can't-
bad
We
leadership.
can't. Okay.
Dude, there is a point at which China, which is known for farming, produced so much metal that it gave up on farming and they had a huge famine because they're putting, it was called the Great Leap Forward, right? When Mao took over, they did all these different things in like the 60s. Is it the early 60s when they did the Great Leap Forward?
Free
and it was
love.
like 3 or 4 year time periods in which they said, we're going to move further as a society in these time chunk periods, right? So it was called the Great Leap Forward. And the first was manufacturing of steel. And when China really became a huge steel producer, they were selling and creating so much steel. Like I said, they gave up on their crops at certain points and started to have famine. But they were becoming a geopolitical supplier throughout, a global supplier throughout the world.
And that's what the U.S. needs to really go back to and concentrate on. And that's why I think it's important that we I mean,
But it failed them.
Try-
They failed back then.
they didn't. It was the groundwork for where they are now.
It
Period.
Yes, it
Plain
made
and
them
simple.
who they are
Yeah,
today.
And that's the thing
But
is like
the bad-
if we didn't have to why I don't know enough about this. I don't know enough about geopolitical stuff. I don't know enough about technologies, but the fact that we can't have microchips made in the US,
we can.
why don't we? Cuz it's too expensive?
That's
What does that mean?
We are addicted to cheap consumer goods. Imagine
Well,
what an
that's
iPhone would cost if
that's
it was made
because
here.
we're made
And that goes to the restrictions you're saying, like to harness certain materials to do
'cause
these things, to the wages you pay your employees.
We're eating people's fucking man hours.
But we're supposed
We are
to
consuming as a country the world's man hours. We're saying that our time is more valuable than some dude in China.
Yeah.
And the Chinese government is saying
Yep.
it is.
yeah,
And we'll
that's
play
it.
that game
Yes.
for a little while. We'll sacrifice 50 years of human lives,
Yeah,
and then we'll just throw, like, we got plenty. We're just gonna throw them down the fucking
That's
rabbit
exactly
hole.
what they're saying.
That's
And they do
what
that.
they
And they
did
do
with
that. And they do that. And
females.
they do that. And they do. Well, they.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, come on, let's be honest.
But
Got a good track record here, China.
at some point,
This is what gets us shut down, let's be honest, our
we need to
overlord.
start maybe not to that extreme, but we need to really start manufacturing stuff back in this country. And that's because if we can be independent of certain things, like I think that would give us a a pot to piss in, so to speak. So if things get bad, when they get bad, we will be somewhat reliant on ourselves, which it wouldn't be great. We wouldn't, if China takes over or even gets to our level, we are in a world of hurt. And that can happen within the next 4 years, 5 years.
On our level with what? Yeah, I was just going to say, I think
they're not.
They're already winning the war.
They're not. They got momentum and it's scary, but they're not there yet.
They have
In what way?
5G everywhere.
So what?
Like their infrastructure.
Okay.
Their level is more built up than ours.
I don't care about that. In what way?
But that's power supply. That's,
culturally,
there's so many coal factories instead of just hydroelectric and stuff
because they don't give a shit about the Green New Deal.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Because that's what's going to get them across the finish line.
I also think that all the enviro green stuff comes from them.
Yes,
it's
putting
getting us to close
the
down
weeds,
our power
yes.
infrastructure.
And that's exactly
Seriously.
That's exactly it. And that's
you've got
what
all these fucking groups. They're knocking down dams all over Washington State because of fish hatchery or whatever the fuck. Yeah. So at the same time they're screaming green energy, they're tearing down the hydroelectric dams. We already decommissioned the nuke plant down in Longview. They're decommissioning nuclear plants all over, which are your best, most efficient, cleanest energy available today. Mm-hmm. So what's left? We're back to burning coal because we're environmentally
No, because we're not allowed to dig that shit up.
Which China's doing the most of, and they just broke their new record ever for most transmission.
So once again, all this Green New Deal or
it's allowing
agenda,
another country to rise to the top.
It's part of the mind virus that allows China to rise.
Yeah. So doesn't it seem like our country's already taken over?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the problem,
right? That's what
we know. The big guy took $5 million in one transaction from the Chinese government, which means the president of the United States is compromised by China. It's undeniable.
But that took over the man. Do you think they took over the head of the snake, and then he was like, "I'll give you media"?
I hope he's the head of the snake.
But that's what I mean. Like, we'll pay off enough people until someone gets into office. When this guy gets in, and it's like, let's really put it down. We've been putting the wheels in motion.
I think he's paid off, but he's not in charge.
There's so many more other.
I guarantee.
Oh man, but that's what it comes down to, right? I'm saying buy things to be able to be efficient. You're on your own, and we're not going to get there. We do not have the time to go. How do I grow a garden and be that? It's
even if China just said stop, we're no longer interested in becoming the world superpower. Our own government, our own administration is still on this top heavy. It's like an unstoppable pendulum that's swinging towards top heavy, and the whole thing's gonna.
They're pulling.
Can I ask a what if?
What if?
Okay, so it seems like Trump has a lot of momentum. Let's just say Trump gets back into office.
They'll never allow it.
Let's just say he gets into office. Just a mind experiment. What do you think Trump's stance on China would be continuing forward from where we've seen the Biden administration through China? Which, remind you, we had a meeting in Anchorage like the second month Biden took office with China, and they called us dogs for 45 minutes. And it's like, wow, that's a weird change. Yeah. Didn't they give fireworks for Trump? Yeah. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. We also cleaned out the streets of San Francisco and lined it with CCP flags for Xi Jinping to drive through.
Yeah.
We basically said, this is your new capital, your capital of North America.
Oh, that's an elegant way of putting it.
That's what they showed him. Look at the pictures from that. Yeah. Hey, Xi, here's your new capital in North America.
So
we rolled out the red carpet for you.
In my experiment, what do you think Trump would do?
We should have sent him through the
Or what do you want him to do?
What do I want him to do? At this point, I say war has been declared. They have declared war on us, and it's time to fight back. And I don't mean kinetic. I mean, it's time to go really harsh with economic sanctions and
Which he did
yeah,
in the previous
Who?
administration.
Okay, there you
Trump.
go.
and really,
I was like, who the fuck?
the best.
Say that again.
Do you know what the best way to combat China would be? Would be to drop taxes on businesses so that they would bring all their production back here.
Yes.
Drop taxes, and that is and provide incentives to build infrastructure so that companies start building more, better. Like our infrastructure is old and decrepit.
Let's
so we
loosen
need,
up
we
a
need
little
new.
of those laws, baby.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Loosen up some regulations.
Going back to
reduce
amendments.
taxes.
What if we drop taxes and we limited the amount a company can donate?
No, companies should not be able to donate to politics at all.
No.
Oh,
No more PACs. No
$5
more-
grand. Here you go. No,
No.
set a
Fuck them,
cap.
dude.
$5 grand.
$5 grand.
No.
Get out
Are
of
you
here.
kidding me?
No.
Get out of
That's
here with that
nothing,
shit.
dude.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. What's the
Boeing
point?
can
But what's-
only give
But what's
$5.
the point?
Companies
It's
are not
just
supposed
goodwill
to
a show.
Companies are
Goodwill
not
a
supposed
show,
to be
fuck
represented.
you.
The people are supposed to be
Yeah,
represented.
no doubt, dude.
So, okay, I like this. Take business off of campaign funding
Yes.
and all sorts.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
public.
Yeah.
And private. So, do you think there should be a salary cap put on private?
What do you mean?
A
private?
salary
Like,
cap?
on private business?
No, private, like people, just as a citizen.
Like cap your ability to earn money?
no,
Stop
what
your
you
upward
can-
mobility.
What you can
that
put,
sounds real communist to me, dog.
No, what you can put towards campaigning. Like, I want to give this Jordan's
yes.
running.
Yes, yes.
I want to
Yeah,
give
there
him.
should be a private cap.
Yes, there should be a cap.
Right. Because you'd have Andrew Rockefeller
It should be
Exactly.
It should
okay.
be the
so business out and a limit.
Andrew Carnegie, John Rockefeller. Sorry.
Yeah. I like that.
a half
I like
a percent of the average American's annual income. That is what it should be.
I'll take it, dude.
And that is based on many different arithmetic that has been conducted.
He's got a
in
notepad
my,
over
in
here.
my mind. So far it says Cold War
Sorry,
1
Brent.
versus Cold War 2 and a bunch of Brent tallies. We have 10 fucks. What is it? 10 fucks, 2 bitches, and 1 whore. 2 whores now. 3. You just keep going.
What about a cunt?
No, well, it's new.
Yeah.
All right.
Mark
Now it
down.
exists in the
In the ether.
the Arcasian
Akashic-
Akashic records. Yeah. Now it exists. We have a cunt. Finally, took this long.
Yeah. So, I'm excited about our next podcast because I just want to talk about like what we need to buy and get and become.
You want to do
He just wants a gear podcast.
I want a gear podcast so bad, but that's also
Jordan,
the problem,
you know
right?
what? I feel like we're denying you who you are. Like, we're like, let's talk a little bit about communism and Cold War. And you're like, yeah, that sounds cool, dude. But in your heart, you're like, there are 6
What about knives?
I've been eyeballing. And you idiots need to learn about the steel. And you know what? This idiot does need to learn about the steel.
The problem is I'm sitting here like we need to quit relying on China and and then I'm like I
Let's go to
love
Cabela's.
shit. I love stuff so
Amazon.
much,
That's the problem. Even our beloved American-made brands, so much of them. I mean, China took over the world.
Yeah, with manufacturing, right? So
Yeah.
that's why it's cool. Like that's why I'm a huge fan of Kafaru. They're very compliant, right?
yeah.
Everything down to the needle that sews these fucking backpacks are made in China. Mine was sewn by a guy named Hong, but whatever. It says inside of it, it tells you who sewed it.
Yeah.
And the guy's last name was Hong.
Oh.
So
Are they made in America or made in China?
they're made in America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I just thought it was funny.
No.
I was like,
They got a Chinese sewer.
yeah.
They flew him in.
yeah, the best in the world, dude. They hold nothing back. But like, so there's companies like that are really Origin.
Yeah,
They're really
Origin,
trying to
yeah.
start going.
It's rare, though.
It's rare and but I feel like there was a little push for a while there of people really trying to get American made stuff.
Yeah.
And I do think that truly does matter.
Yeah.
And spending a little bit more
Yes.
money, and maybe what it ends up being, and this is kind of going to sound fucked up, but spending a little bit more money on a little lower quality thing until the American people or American manufacturers can get a hold of and learn what they're doing again. Because you can buy a Sitka gear that's made in wherever the fuck it's made, and they're able to have better gear at a lower price because they know what they're doing. Whereas you look at some of the Origin stuff and it's not as nice. There's a company called Gulch Gear, and that guy, he manufactures gear for the most part in the U.S. It's sewed in the U.S. and whatnot, but he can't make certain things outside this country. Like textiles, we just don't have the infrastructure for that. We haven't. We've sent all that across the seas.
So that base level manufacturing is what we need to draw back.
Yeah, if we start working on that and
hang on, there's another big problem, which is the American workforce is not going to work in factories. You are not going to get 20-year-olds in 2024 to take a factory job on a textile mill. Or a steel
We just
mill.
make
Are
it
you kidding me?
VR.
How could you bring...
It's VR sewing. What are you talking about?
Yeah, holy shit. Yeah, you might. Yeah. But then the AI can run it. And why do we need it to hire somebody?
Stupid teens.
But that's the problem, right? Like there is a thought process of you need to go to college to learn how to play with the computer to be successful at all. Mm-hmm. And if there was a working wage that could actually be reasonable for the U.S. people and be able to, I don't know what that looks like, right? I'm going to be honest.
I don't think that's going to be relevant. And by the time my kids are adults, I think that if your life revolves around a computer, you will be replaced by AI in the next 10 years.
Probably.
Or I should say, not your life. If your job revolves around a computer, you're going to be replaced.
Yeah, and I've seen how it's made. Like I've seen textiles that are just massive, and that's what it comes down to, right? Like machines have done so much. Mm-hmm. They've come so far, and until we can figure out what it looks like to change that, there's something people pay a lot of money for handmade stuff. And it's almost because it's like not the oddity of it, but like just like, oh, this was handmade. Like, look, it's cool. It feels good.
Yeah,
it's high quality.
It has a little spirit to it. Or a little soul to it.
There's something to it, right? But that you won't get that in an iPad, and we need that, right? And that goes into like I was talking about. I want to talk about the next podcast and what we're gonna do. Like the modern day Minuteman stuff.
Hang on. Next one's going to be with Will. And then the one after that, we'll have to go to modern day Minuteman.
Okay. Well, either way, that's the thought process of like technology's moving so far forward that we're in this weird dichotomy of like, I want things that are cool and handmade and like the axe, right? But at the same time, I ordered it on an iPad that is unconceivable to the person who originally made this thing.
Yeah.
Right. So like we have this weird place where like, Robert's rules of ranging is going to have to include some night vision. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Technology has moved so far forward and we have to stay relevant to that. But we also have to figure out a way to get that stuff back to this country and keep it at a place where it's like somewhat reasonable to be able to purchase for the people here. Yeah. Because don't think that people are able to get the same stuff that comes from China, that's made in China. The people making it aren't they're not buying it.
No.
So, and I don't want to say we're going to have to just sacrifice lives, but tough times are coming either way.
I think that's a good note to end it on. Mike, unless you're burning to say something.
No?
Absolutely not. All right, guys. Numbers have been going up. We appreciate y'all. If you're enjoying the show, please give us a review on iTunes or Spotify and share the podcast with your friends.
Tough times are coming, bitches.